So in the context of this presentation, we will go over why spiritual conversation is really important in the context of communal discernment. Therefore, why having these group conversations is really key. Then how to convene and prepare the meeting, the online meeting with your group, how to get the participants ready and involved at the beginning, how to lead the participants in the 3 rounds of sharing of the spiritual conversation, what you need to pay attention to during the process, what to do after each meeting, and who to contact if you have any questions. So spiritual conversation, we really have the conviction that we really believe that the Holy Spirit is at work in each person, in each group, in all situations. God is already working in the world and already at work, bringing about God's kingdom of justice, peace, and constantly attracting us to choosing life, choosing the greater good, choosing the common good. And so the Holy Spirit is already at work in all circumstances. And therefore, spiritual conversation is really a process which is meant to create the space, to create the conditions for a group to really open up to the motions of the Holy Spirit, to become able to recognize how the Holy Spirit is moving in the group, personally and through the group, and therefore also to make decisions under the motions of the Holy Spirit. So it's really a process meant to help a group align its energies with the work of God already at work in the world. And the way it works is it requires from the people who engage in this sort of conversation to pay attention to how we're being touched. So it's my personal and our communal, affective, and emotional responses to what is being shared. Because this is how the Spirit gently touches our hearts and shows us something that we need to pay attention to. And so in this process, attention to the process and to how things are being done is really important because it really influences the quality of the outcome. So we are setting up a certain number of rules and ways of doing things, but it's really important because this is how we make sure that we are really doing what we want to do. So a tip is really to pay attention to your to the time of personal prayer, to prepare your sharings in writing, to invite the members of your groups to do the same, and to keep an attitude of reverence and listening and trust in the process during the conversation. So in terms of preparation, what we ask for is that you schedule the group spiritual conversation during the second week after the plenary session. We will have moments of plenaries. Tomorrow will be the first one. In this plenary, we give the material for personal prayer. And so we leave 1 week for people to, do this moment of personal prayer and prepare their sharing. And so if the meeting happens during the second week, it's going to be a good moment for everybody to come together. So ensure you have the technical, elements to make sure this can happen. Plan for a 1.5-hour meeting, which gives you enough space for introductions, conclusions. It doesn't have to last that long, but at least schedule this time so you're comfortable. Prepare an invitation with a link that people can click through Zoom or an application that works. Be mindful of time zones if you have members in different time zones to communicate, the time in each person's time zone, and remind everyone to prepare in writing their sharing about what they want to share before the meeting, because this helps tremendously the quality of the meeting as well, when people come prepared and share exactly what they have prepared. So suggestion with your group is maybe to agree already right away on a series of dates so that you don't have to figure out another date all the time. So that could be an idea. So when the meeting begins, what we suggest is that you start with a round of check-ins, asking each participant to describe with a few words how they arrived to the conversation, whether they're peaceful, stressed, angry, annoyed, because the benefits of this really helps to welcome each person as they are, you know, and it's okay to be angry. It's fine. In this sense, they can, you know, lay their anger on the table and it's okay. And then you prevent this strong emotion from swaying the conversation afterwards. Like it prevents the underlying emotion to kind of, you know, act in a weird way afterwards. So it's really a good tool to get the conversation started and to engage people. Another important thing is to be mindful of time, because the process works because everybody has the same amount of time to speak. So it's important also to designate somebody who will be the timekeeper and who will motion, you will, you know, motion their hand when the person has only about 30 seconds left. So if people have, for example, 3 minutes to speak, you ask somebody to wave their hand at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And an easy way to do so is to use, you know, sometimes on the phone you have a little timer application, so the person can set their time at like 2:30, and then when the thing is off, they can just motion so that people know that they have 30 seconds left, and they know it's time to kind of wind down. So, and if you're the facilitator, it's maybe easier to designate somebody else because it's complicated sometimes to do both things, facilitate and to keep the time. So at the beginning of the conversation, and especially for the first times, after a while, you won't have to repeat all these instructions, but at the beginning, it's important to present how it will unfold. So there will be 3 rounds of sharing that you will lead, and you will call individuals, you know, in a certain order. So you can pick up the order which is on your screen, starting with the left and going to the right, and, you know, top down or whatever, whichever order works, and announce it beforehand so that people know when they will speak, and keep the same order for each round because it's easier. People don't have to figure out, and it helps to have a sequence. When someone speaks, everybody else listens, and it's even better to be on mute so that, you know, there's not background noise and everything. And each person has the same amount of time. So we recommend like 3 minutes max, because it's complicated, especially on Zoom, to keep track of what everybody's saying. It's tiring. So 3 minutes helps to really be precise, to the point, and is a chunk that allows memorization and integration afterwards. Then you can recall the specificities of the conversation. What we ask is that people really share the level of what I felt, what came to me in prayer was, or I experienced. It's really not a place to debate about general ideas or informations. It starts really from me and my experience that I'm sharing, because this is how we can hear how the Spirit has touched the person, and therefore how the Spirit is touching the group. So help people to connect and to speak from this point. We ask also that participants do not reply to each other. They really speak at the level of their experience. They're not going to say, oh, I agree with so-and-so, or on the contrary, I think that. No, we're not at the level of a discussion. Everybody brings really what their prayer, their experience is, and therefore everybody is an expert of their own, you know, experience. So there's no like, I disagree or I second that or whatever. It's really, no, I think that. It's also, of course, possible to remain silent. We're not forcing anyone to share if they don't want to, and to skip their turn, but at least they know they have a slot. And to encourage people to really keep an attitude of care and reverence, like welcoming each other's contributions and listening deeply to oneself, to others, and to God. To lead the conversation, so we mentioned these 3 rounds. So the first round is basically to invite all the participants to read what they have prepared beforehand. And so you do this in sequence, everybody shares. And then once everybody has shared, you invite people to pause for a few minutes, for a couple of minutes, to listen to what resonated the most in what they heard from the first round. So everybody talks, and then you invite people to say, to see what resonated the most in what you've heard. And then the second round is about sharing what touched them the most in the first round. So you can see that the raw material for the first round is the what people have prepared, and then what you work with in the second round is the first round, basically. So the input for the second round is what people heard in the first round. So once everyone has shared about what touched them the most in the first round, then you pause again for a few moments to reflect on what seems to be converging or emerging at this stage of the conversation. And then once people have had the time to just gather their thoughts and reflect on the question, you invite people to share on what seems to be converging or emerging at this stage from the conversation. Like, is there a common thread in what people have shared? Is there a common insight, or you feel that there's an invitation or something that's becoming clearer? Like, okay, so this is what we're looking for, because this is the sign that the Spirit is telling us something at this stage. So what to pay attention to during the conversation, especially as of the second round and moving forward. We're looking for the presence or absence of the fruits of the Spirit, so to speak. In Ignatian language, we speak of consolation and desolation. Consolation is when the group is truly engaged in active listening and intentional speaking, when you feel that participants are really present, and that there's this emergence of a shared insight, a truth, or a consensus, something that gathers energy, that people say, yes, this is really what we're hearing. You can see people lighting up a little bit, and you can feel that the communion is happening in the group. Like, people appreciate what others say. There's a sense of acceptance, inclusivity, and this is the sign that the Spirit is work and leading the group towards God, that there's something good happening, and therefore the group is on the right path, and the Spirit is talking in this instance. You might experience also sometimes moments of desolation when people, disengage, withdraw a little bit. There's a sense of feeling of being stuck. There's a decrease in trust. People start acting out of, other motives, or you feel there's a sense of not listening really to each other. This is the sign that the group is moving away from God. And at that moment, it's important to help the participants regroup and reground themselves again in what it is they hope to accomplish together. So to recall, okay, this is what we're looking for. This is what we need to do, and regroup so that we can listen and, reorient the energies in the right direction. At the end of the conversation, what we are asking of you is to make sure that within the group you agree on what you want to report to the wider group. So to share something about your conversation so that it can, feed the bigger conversation. So you're going to ask someone to volunteer to put together an account of what you want to share. And we will send you links to Google Forms on the internet, where you will have the possibility of inserting your text directly into a form on the screen, so that we save the trouble of attachments, emails, and all that stuff. You click on the link, you will have a text box with instructions, and you can enter your information directly in there, so that we, at the level of the facilitation team, we can gather all these feedbacks and do something with it and give it back to the assembly at the next meeting. And at the end of the conversation, you can confirm with the group the date of the next meeting, which is going to take place the following month. So in terms of context, if you have any technical questions about how to convene the meeting, the Zoom thing, whatever, you can contact the CRC directly. If you have any questions regarding the process, how to do it, what happens with my small group, if you're faced with any situation that's confusing, whatever, or you want a little more advice on stuff, don't hesitate to reach out to me or to Gilles directly. You can send me an email, we can talk on the phone, we can take a moment to discuss any question that you might have about the process. Okay. So that's it for the, the input by way of slides. Thank you again for your participation, accepting to embark on this journey and to facilitate the group. And during this entire process, of course, we hold you in prayer. It's like this big prayerful exercise we're embarking on. So we're praying with you and for you on this journey. And we really pray that God will bless you and bless us in your prayers and your spiritual conversations, so that we might serve God even better, in Canada moving forward, to help to grow this kingdom amongst ourselves and in the world, because that's what we're all about. So that's the idea. So everybody's back. So, and Jill, you wanted to make 2 comments?
Actually, just the one comment this time. We didn't cover this in the presentation, but it is good practice at the end of the meeting to do a little bit of a review. Ask people, how do you feel as we leave the meeting? It's a good touchstone for you as facilitator to get a sense of consolations and desolations, but also it's really helpful for the participants. In our group, somebody said, I feel energized. It helps people notice whether they have been in consolation during the meeting. So it's a good practice to do a quick review. People don't have to say more than a couple of words, but it's useful to the group and to you as facilitator.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. So that's a good point, really. And we, in our group, we ended up doing it very quickly. Like, how do you feel after this conversation? And we shared.